Okay, guys, it's showtime. Welcome to the Fife Property Show this morning. Tim, this morning we're going to be talking about interest rate rises, how to keep your sale or your remortgage plans on track. Bank of England base rates have just increased by 0.75% to a base rate of 3%. Now, we show about this when Zoopla with their statistics, and it's turbulent times ahead, I think. So they think it's turbulent times ahead. Here are nice, easy, helpful tips to see you through these turbulent times. Just because somebody says it, it doesn't mean it's true. Probably equally goes the same as us. Really? It's like, maybe I shouldn't have listened to you then. Good morning, Jimmy. How are you?
Yeah, good, Jim. Thanks. Good week and good evening. Went down to Anstruther fireworks yesterday, so that was pretty good. Good display, actually. Really impressed. Loads of people there as well. So looking forward to the show as well, because covering a lot of good topics and topics that are active right now, which people need to know if they don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, even though the interest rates, the base rates went up during the week just now, and base rates were up, I mean, some of the fixed rate mortgages actually dropped as a result because of the certainty in the swap rates. And we're going to talk about that in the market. We're also going to talk about that in the midweek show as well, coming up on Wednesday. But let's talk about this. I mean, are we all in for a bumpy ride ahead? The media is battling out to write the scariest headlines of the imminent price crash and soaring interest rates. I think they've got us on about 18% base rates before we've even begun this journey. And we're going to have a recession next year, even though we're not technically in recession. But there isn't a newspaper, market analyst, or financial expert who knows the future of the property market. Do you remember the pandemic? Property prices are going to drop 20%. It's all going to crash round about our ears. What happened? So take what they say with a pinch of salt. Base your reasoning on facts rather than actually emotions and other people's opinions. When somebody said something to you, you immediately go to yourself, okay, where did that information come from? So you're getting your wee BS radar out and just making sure that people are actually saying the right thing to you. And you understand what goes into your head as well will be what comes out in an emotional response.
Yeah, people make decisions off emotion, so it's good sometimes to take a step back rather than panicking.
Yeah. Nonetheless, Jimmy, though, homeowners will be affected by rising interest rates. There's no doubt about that. And if you're planning to remortgage within the next year or so, you're likely to pay a higher rate than you actually do now. And if you're looking to sell, you might feel like you've actually missed the boat to move. This is like the golden opportunity right now. Like you've got this picture of the boat leaving the harbour and you're running across the pier. And at this point in time, this is the decision whether you say to yourself, do I jump to get on the boat? Or do I hesitate for a moment and then fall in the water? Think about that. That's exactly where some people are right now. They won't take that leap of faith. And I really mean that leap of faith. Have faith in yourself, have faith in your decisions, because you're fundamentally, usually and typically right at your core values. You know it's right, but fear holds you back. So fortunately, it's not all bad news. The Bank of England's intimated that the interest rates will go up, and they did. And it lowered the market speculation, following several high street lenders cutting their rates. So for all those predictions, so much for all these predictions, because they did cut all the rates because they expected it to happen. Most people did. I didn't actually expect it to do as much as 0.75%, but they must have information that I don't have, and we can only go on the facts that they're delivering. Still, there's plenty of uncertainty and nervousness right now. So whether you're planning to remortgage your home, looking to sell, or even if your buyer's mortgage has expired, this show is for you, and this podcast is for you as well. Whether you're actually looking to buy, this podcast is for you as well, or this show's for you. It is important that you get the facts, and this is what we're going to discuss tonight. So, Jimmy, what's the first sort of thing? I mean, do people stay where they are? Is that what the intention is?
Yeah, I would say a lot of conversation that I've been having with people right now, they've taken a back step, and they're deciding to, as you said, staying where they are. You don't have to move, or don't have to move home to be affected by the rise in interest rates, though. If
Yeah.
you're one of the 1.8 million homeowners who are due to come out of an existing fixed rate in the next 12 months, your remortgage will almost certainly be higher than the rate that you have now.
Yeah. There's no escaping increased borrowing costs, though. So there's some things that you can do, possibly, Jimmy, to minimise how much extra you have to pay. And what examples of that could be then? What could we do?
This is great because we actually had a meeting, a training session with Neil Bird, discussing what people could do. So,
Okay, who's Neil Bird?
Neil Bird, great mortgage advisor from Cara Mortgages.
Right, okay.
We refer all our.
So you had a chat with him. Do you know what sort of things was he saying then? So what sort of advice would you be giving right now?
So if you're looking to stay where you are, you can overpay on your current mortgage. Most lenders allow 10% of the balance per year to reduce the amount that you need to pay on your remortgage and get the best loan to value rates.
Now, that's quite interesting to me, because when you said there, most lenders allow 10% of your balance per year, I'm thinking, but if you're on a normal variable rate mortgage, that wouldn't really apply. This is all about penalties, isn't it? You know, the redemption penalties that people are in. Even fixed rate mortgages have redemption penalties, but did you realise that some fixed rate mortgages still allow you to pay up to 10% of the balance off every single year and actually not be penalised for it?
Yeah, exactly right. And there's people that are maybe first-time buyers people who are first-time buyers looking to remortgage. Me and Neil looked at it for myself, who used the first home fund. We were looking at when remortgaging and potentially paying that off on the remortgage. So there's loads of different things. Speaking to someone like Neil would really help you. Another one you could do is which is probably the most obvious, is putting additional money aside in savings accounts. Rates are better than they have been for years, to overpay even more at the next opportunity.
This was quite an interesting one. So I was watching Martin Lewis's Money Saving Expert show, and he was talking about cash ISAs are probably no longer relevant anymore, because the cash ISA locks you in for 2 years at a rate which is actually, if not, it is the same or lower than what you're actually getting on instant access cash savers accounts right now. And if you get up to £1,000 interest on your savings, tax free, because that's the personal savings allowance you get, then if you're not going to make more than £1,000 and you're a lower rate of taxpayer, and interest every single year on your savings, then it's potentially better just to leave your money in a normal instant access savings account. And you get really good ones roundabout. I mean, check out Martin Lewis's Money Saving Expert website, for that. I'll maybe post it in the comments here if I get a chance when you're speaking, Jimmy. But it actually gives you really good insight into that, into what you should be doing. So a lot of people actually, after the end of that conversation, said to Martin Lewis, it's like, I didn't see the point of having a cash ISA anymore. They were great in the heyday when you didn't have the personal savings allowance, interest up to £1,000 that you could earn without actually getting taxed on it. But they're not really that relevant now because of the way it works out and the lower interest rates, and they're comparable with normal instant access accounts with some of the major lenders anyway. What else can we do then?
This is one that Neil actually discussed. The next one is one Neil actually discussed with us there, for people that are a bit worried or don't know what the future may hold, is check whether you're better off ditching your current mortgage now, even if there is an early repayment charge, or reserving a new deal in advance before further rates rise. Ultimately, I think, speaking to a financial advisor like Neil with access to the entire mortgage market, I think Neil has access to over 90 different lenders, so you're going to get the best deal if you speak to someone like Neil. To find out who's got the best deals for you, you can also download a brilliant 62-page guide to remortgage from the Money Saving Expert website.
Best savings rates and mortgage rates. I'm just about to put in here. If I can spell that correctly, I'll just get my spell checker. Mortgage rates. And we're going to stick that in there. That's in the comments, guys. So Money Saving Expert website is actually in the comments right now. So you can click on that to your heart's content and actually get all that advice and information and facts and figures. Remember, this is all facts and figures. Make sure you're well informed first before you go anywhere else. Okay, so that was a really good one. Ditch your current mortgage, even though it's got an early repayment charge. I actually did that with one of my buy-to-let mortgages. It never made sense. It actually made more sense for actually to do a. To be honest, I was paying a huge amount, and I thought, nah, it would be more preferential for me, because if I was to transfer 6 of my mortgages, which I did, 6 of my properties to my limited company, I would avoid the ADS stamp duty, so the second duty home, and because it's 6 or more, you avoid that, and it made actually prudent sense, because that was tens of thousands of pounds I was saving, but the redemption penalty on that one mortgage was like two grand. So it made absolute sense to actually just transfer the company, the mortgage, to the property to a limited company. This is buy-to-let and property investment I'm talking about, guys. So it's another thing that we actually get involved in. I actually get involved in myself with the Wealth Creation Show. So you're right. Speak to an advisor that has access to the entire mortgage market and find out who's got the best deal for you. And you're absolutely right. Download that 62-page guide to remortgage on Money Saving Expert website, and it's in the comments as well. So what do you do if you're thinking of selling, Jimmy?
Well, if you're thinking of selling, are you wondering if the moment has passed to sell your home for the best price, or whether you'll find a buyer at all, given the current turmoil in the mortgage market?
Yeah.
Many sellers that we meet have the same concerns, but here's why: all is very far from the lost.
Yeah.
So there's 3 points that we'd like to cover. Is it may not be quite as strong a seller's market as it was last year, but if you're selling and buying, the cash gap between your sale price and your purchase price could shrink as the market shifts.
Okay, let's think about that. It may not be quite as strong as the seller's market. Yeah, absolutely right. It's not quite as strong. It's about 50-50 now, I think. We're still ahead of where we were before the pandemic. So, and we'll talk about that in the midweek show. But if you're selling or buying, a cash gap between your sale price and your purchase price could shrink as the market shifts. Yeah, absolutely. So your equity actually reduces that you've got in it. So you've got 30% equity in it so far. So in other words, you've got a £100,000 house, and your mortgage is 70 grand then, and your equity is 30,000. That's what we talk about, the loan to value of 70%. So if that price shrinks next year by 10%, for example, therefore it drops to 90,000. Therefore, you've only got 20,000 equity now. Your mortgage is still the same. I get that completely. That makes absolute sense. This is a good comment from Debbie here. She says, good morning. I'm a mortgage advisor. I have never been so busy as people are trying to find the best deal as their rates are coming to an end. She actually, in her words, people are panicking because they have had low rates for the last 13 years.
Yeah.
Take yourself back to the 1980s when rates were 15%. And I don't think they'll ever get to that dizzy height again, unless unless everybody's salaries go up as well. That's the only reason they'll ever have any reason to go up there. But that's another story. That's inflationary pressure and the overall economic picture. There's still a shortage of available property, which is actually underpinning prices, isn't there?
Yep. I think there's around about 900, just over 900 on the market in Fife right now, whereas pre-pandemic 2019 there was about 1,200. So there is still shortage available from when the market was good then.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to check out Zoopla now. I'm just having a wee look at Zoopla's website. Fife. So just now, right across the Fife market, we have 937. Wow. Yeah. So we have 937. 6-7 months ago, we had 550. But still, we're getting to the point where we had 1,200 before the pandemic, right across the board. But we also, wait till you see the eye-watering figures. Have I got my details scripted out here? No, I've got all my facts and figures lying about somewhere on my desk. And you do want to see my desk. But I know in the credit crunch, it was something like 1,800 properties before were on the market. And then when the credit crunch came along, it was 2,805 that were on the market. So compare that. 1,800 before the credit crunch happened, we've only got 937, which is half of that. And then 2,800 after the credit crunch had happened. And it's like, wow, that's less than a third we've got right now of that figure. So I think you're absolutely right. You know, Jimmy, long-term considerations and the shortage availability definitely is underpinning the prices.
Yeah.
What about long-term considerations then?
Well, long-term considerations are typically done around schools, work, space,
Yeah.
family, lifestyle. These usually outweigh the ups and downs of the property market.
Yeah,
People
because well, you realise yourself. You know, we've talked about this successively, and we'll talk about it again. In short, people actually live live lives which are continuously moving, regardless of the interest rate and market fluctuations. So, you know, with a good agent on your side who promotes your home beautifully and proactively, then it will certainly sell. And it's the old thing about there is more equity in people's homes right now than there was in 2008. So, and I hate to go back to compare it to 2008, but they are beating this wild drum, even from the Bank of England, that this is going to be the longest recession we've ever been in. It's like, okay, then let's compare it to the 2008 catastrophic credit crunch, which actually, you know, was a huge, 20% drop in the market. And also lack of availability of funding and finance, which actually caused that problem. Hence the reason it was termed the credit crunch. So we're going to compare like all the time just to see if there's any similarities, but I don't see the same similarities now if we compare it to that event. I actually see it more optimistic, and I have a more bullish outlook to the housing market in terms of the Fife housing market as well over the next coming year. But it really does come down to, isn't it, Jimmy, that you need to have a good estate agent on your side.
100%. What they do, well, you need to be in contact with them. You need to ask them questions. What are they doing? Because if you're not hearing from them, then you don't know what they are doing. So normally comes down to what I say the 3 Ps: product, price, and presentation. So you need to make sure you're covering all those 3 factors to try and get you the best result.
Mm-hmm. And could we explore that a wee bit more then? You know, do you think it's? I mean, we talk about video all the time, don't we? But do you think video actually adds any value to a presentation at all?
I was actually having this conversation, and I had an appointment this week with a lady that's currently on the market with another agent. Been on for 6 months, reduced the price twice, not sold. She did a full renovation before she put it on the market as well. So the product is there. It's fully renovated. So it comes to 2 things: price and presentation. We discussed the price. I showed her the comparables in the current market. The next thing comes to presentation, and what she's got is probably what I would say is basic photos, probably taken by the agent themselves, and then the listing. So we discussed video. I asked her to talk about the area, and I said, how is the agent getting that area across? Because there's no video discussing what the area has to offer, what the property has to offer, the schools, the events, or everything else about Fife is being left out. How are you meant to sell that to somebody if you're not talking to them? And what people need to realise as well is 80% of the interaction on Rightmove, this is facts as well, 80% of the interaction on Rightmove is done through video.
Yeah.
So
do you think then there's any value, and I talk about this all the time, any value between what I call a silent movie, which is basically a video walkthrough with music, and a talking picture, which is basically what I do, for want of a better phrase, and a full walkthrough and talk about it and talk about the area and talk about everything that's in the property. Do you think do you think they're just similar, or do you think any one of them is needed?
Well, the ones that I would say most agents do with there's music in the background, I would say that's more of a tool to make the client feel great about how beautiful their home is. In my opinion, because anything that they're seeing on that particular video, they see in the picture. In the pictures, what our videos do, you see what's in the picture, but then you get an explained or spoken to, like you're the only one, like you're on a viewing, about the area, about the finishings, about changes that people could could make, or the versatile, how versatile the room is. So you're not just covering the one buyer, you're explaining to them every single buyer how they could potentially adapt the home to make it work for them as well.
I get that. So do you think it's a more a grand designs approach, whereas we're taking people through a property? So is that, and tell them, you're absolutely right. I can't disagree with what you're saying in terms of the video. Absolutely, because, when you look at a video of your house, you know everything there is to know about your house. So when you look at a video of your house and it's just got music on it, you go, oh yeah, that's right. But you know everything there is to know about your house, but it doesn't tell a buyer at the other end anything, because all they're seeing is beautiful pictures in motion. You see it all the time. You actually see people actually use. Now, I did away with this 10 years ago, by the way, in 2010. You actually still see people introduce this now as the pictures going in and out. Just the actual picture, but it goes in and out with music on it, and somebody talks while it's going in and out, but it's only pictures. And I'm thinking, does that actually? And then I looked into that, and then I realized that actually you get downgraded on social media for that, because it's old technology, it's an old system you're using. It goes way back to 2010. The only reason I know that is because I used to use it because it was from America, and I embraced it at that time. The full video with the pictures, and then also the home tours where you clicked on the button and it took you to certain places in the property. But it still doesn't tell you anything about the property and about the area, and it doesn't tell a buyer that either. It tells you because you know, but it doesn't tell the buyer that. So I think that's why the importance of a proper professional talk-up video is probably the best thing you can do for the buyer at the other end, so they understand what they're buying into. Remember, you're selling a lifestyle. You're not selling a property. People move for their needs and their wants. They don't move for plain simple facts that I'm going to make more money.
Yeah, I think we'll need to obviously look at the numbers, but touching on that a little bit more is I don't think there'll be another agent that have sold more properties when the purchaser hasn't even been through the door than us, if that makes sense. Because we're selling a lot of properties, or have done, that buyers aren't even going through the door. They've seen the photos, they've seen everything in the video. It's explained to them in the video. Then some properties will get the location, so they know exactly how many miles or where it is to each and everything. They've got no reservations about making an offer and buying it because they've seen everything and it's all been explained to them.
Yeah. And I completely get that. And some people are actually mortified by the fact that people are actually buying £500,000 and £400,000 houses without actually even walking in the door until the day they get the keys. That's a daunting prospect for a lot of people. But now I think about it, it's like that's how I do most of my property investment now. I actually never go in the door.
Yeah.
I get someone else to go walk around the property for me, assess it once the offer's been accepted, verbally, and I get them to look at it just to confirm what I know, and then what we need to do, and then the job's done. But I never walk in the door anymore. I don't see the need to do it because I've got a system in place to operate that, and that's what most busy people have.
Yeah.
Most wealthy people have lots of money, put it that way, but they have little time. They've never got that balance worked out yet. This is why you often see in harbours, you see these big, beautiful boats sitting there, and they're moored in that harbour for, about 99% of the year. And every now and again, the person comes along for their holiday for 2 weeks of the year and takes their boat out for a spin in the ocean. It's because they've got loads of money, but they've got absolutely no time. So how do you get that message across to someone? It's actually further afield. It doesn't have that time, but actually has the money to actually buy your property. And video talk-ups, I believe, are that exact tool that does that job. It does what it says in the tin. It takes somebody through all front to back. And then what we call is location tours, because the location tour isn't just a drone tour, which people do. It's actually a proper animated, tagged, where everything is. For example, how far from the Edinburgh Airport? How far from St Andrews? Where is the nearest cafes and bistros and restaurants? Where's the primary? Where's the secondary schools? What is the points of interest I'm going to look at? What do I need to know about the area I'm buying into? That's how you catch somebody. It's cash rich but time poor. That's where the potential lies of the proper video presentation and marketing. Digital marketing is everything now, because everybody spends all their time on this, the mobile phone. This is the new television, Jimmy.
Yep.
Most people will spend the time on their phone while they're actually watching the television in the background now. Television has gravitated towards radio, where people just listen to it, and now and again they look up and went, "Oh, what happened? What happened? What happened there?" And then they rewind it. Does that sound familiar?
Me and Charlotte do that every day.
Exactly, because I do it as well. Television is a way now. It is now in the secondary. That's why YouTube has invested heavily and rewards people for pushing out content and videos and valuable resources. That's why you get that on social media as well. All that kudos. So the more you give social media and the more you give YouTube, the more you get pushed out organically to bigger audiences. The bigger audiences you have, therefore, the more people that can see your property when they come to market. That is the fundamental key. And if you've been working on it for 3 years, like I've been, you're way ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
Even some of the biggest in the country, even some of the big, huge brand names have no idea what's going on. They've missed the boat. They've basically fallen in the water while they've been trying to jump on. And they're too late. They'll have to get their own boat or wait for the next one to come along. So what do you do, Jimmy, if you're on the market right now?
Well, if you're on the market right now, conveyancing logjams are affecting thousands of moves right now because of so many sales this year.
Yeah.
This is meaning there's a higher risk of mortgage offers expiring before sales complete. So if your home is already on the market, focus on removing every potential legal delay with the 5-point checklist that we have. So number one would be instructing your solicitor or conveyancer now in getting all your paperwork together to speed up the legal work, including deeds, guarantees, and property information forms.
So for anybody that doesn't understand what that is, it's what our job is as an estate agent is actually to take your property to the point where you've got an agreed sale and an offer has been sent in writing and has been agreed. Once that sale is agreed in writing, that then is passed on to your solicitor or any solicitor. We can recommend solicitors as well, to do what they call is the title searches, the deed and the guarantees, the property information reports, and make sure your property that you're either buying or selling is exactly what you're actually expecting to get. That's the whole point of a solicitor. That's why they're there. And to legally put it in place so you're protected in case of any comeback or any reason why you might not see something because it's hidden in the small print. That's why a solicitor is there, to protect your interests as well. That's the most important thing that they do. And that's what a solicitor or a conveyancer, because that's the process that they do, it does in that job. So very, very valuable. You have a really good solicitor or conveyancer to do that job after we finalise that agreed sale. What else have we got there, Jimmy?
So
what else can we do?
Next point would be review progress now with your agent to ensure your home's asking price reflects current sales in the property market in Fife.
Yeah.
So that's like I was just talking about the lady that I've been out to this week who's currently on the market. I had to go through with her with what's on the market and sold to make sure that where she is now and what I would advise she goes on the market at again.
This is generally because, correct me if I'm wrong, this is generally because your property maybe came on the market at 300,000 or 400,000 at the time in the home report. But maybe if it's been on for 2 or 3 months, you've had in that time a couple of similar properties to yours have actually come on and actually maybe sold at a lower value, or they've been on at a lower value. Now there can be overvaluing, there can be undervaluing as well from estate agents. We've seen it all the time. I mean, I've sold a 1-bedroom property for the same price as somebody sold a bungalow in the same area. I mean, work that one out. A 1-bedroom apartment compared to a bungalow, and yet I sold it for the same price, if not more, actually. No, it was more. So exactly in the same area. So undervaluing can go on quite a lot, and it's in order to get quick sales so they can get quick fees. I'll have no bones about that, and I'll call anybody out on that. It says that's not the case, because it is. You're there to get the best value for your customer and the best price for your customer, and you should be aiming for the stars. And then if you can't get that, you'll be hitting the moon on the way down. You shouldn't be just no planning to leave the earth at all. and just saying, right, that's it, that's all you're getting, and that's what we expect. Oh, you happy with that? Yeah, you're happy with that. Great stuff. We'll get the home report at that value then. Oh, we'll get a quick sale. That's not what that should be. You're there, it's there to make sure. So review the progress with your agent to ensure that your home's asking price still currently reflects the value that you originally had it at in your home report, because it might be affected by other agents' properties on the market at this point in time. I've often heard that, Jimmy, how come theirs is sold and theirs went on after me? Well, maybe that's because they've got a 1-bedroom flat and you've got a 6-bedroom mansion.
Yeah.
I think they've got 2 different markets, but that's all people see. How's that one sold? Well, that one was 100,000 and yours is 500,000.
Yeah, and it's taking. You got to review what's similar to yours, and then the price, and then reflect the price point and the condition of the property. There's many factors that you need to look at. Ultimately, I know everybody that I list for, we're doing everything we can, and I know from me and speaking to surveyors that everything that I list is a fair value. It's more about just trying to, what we specialize in and what I'm interested in the most is trying to get the highest possible price for the seller in the market right now.
It's quite interesting. Most surveyors, and we will say that as well, the price is only worth what somebody's prepared to pay. And it is a bit, it's a bit scientific for us to get that value for the home report, because we actually look at comparables and look at similar properties. And if we've not got a similar property, we've got a good educated guess about where we are right now in terms of where your price is. And we've got mechanisms in order to test that in the marketplace before you actually go live on any website. And that's to ascertain the right price point for your property on the starting point as well. The interesting one as well is another probably top tip if you're on the market is stand out from the crowd with the tips that we've done. You know, the Love at First Sight article was a great show we did, in a podcast that we did is actually in these links as well to this blog, to make your home irresistible online and on viewings as well. Anything, you know, what's the next top tip you would say if you're on the market, Jimmy?
The next top tip is be flexible with buyers who either are cash or getting a small loan to value mortgage, as they're less affected by interest rate jumps.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, especially right now. There's a lot of people. Now, I've actually, the courier, Maria actually wrote to me in the courier, says, look, could you give me an update for the quarterly information for the courier for our article on the Fife property market and the surrounding market and as well. And she said she had actually noticed quite a lot of fall throughs in the solicitors on the ESPC. She's seen fall throughs. She's seen properties come back on. Now, I'll be honest, we've not really seen fall throughs. We've not really seen properties come back on because we've got somebody else lined up. You know, we've maybe got 1 or 2, but not on the dramatic scale that she was talking about. So I was quite surprised about that. But then again, that's maybe down just to the way you plan things and the way you engineer things. In other words, you make sure you get a buyer, you know, set up in second place. So if first doesn't make it over the line, you've got second coming right at the back of them. And that's possibly why to avoid the fall through. So it's quite a really good one to do. Interestingly enough, the cash buyers as well. I've been buying recently and it's cash. You know, I've been saying to people for investments, you know, I'm cash buyer, ready to go. I just bought one the other now 2 weeks ago and I'm concluding it on the 18th of November. So you tell me, when you think about this, out of that story and the way I've done it, that's literally within a month I've actually managed to get a property for cash. So everybody's saying it's taking 3 and 4 months. Why is that?
Yeah, I would say, well, me personally, I know what we're doing in the office. A lot of the fall throughs I bet are coming from people or agents not going on to the next point that we're going to discuss, is not qualifying people that are making the offers first. They're just taking the offers and then worrying about thinking they've done their job. Then it's going to the solicitor and they can't get a mortgage, or they can't afford it, or they don't have enough cash for the deposit, or they can't totally buy cash and they have to get a mortgage, and it's going delaying and delaying and delaying. So I think it comes down to your agent as well, making sure that XYZ is in place before they even go to the viewing and make an offer.
So in other words, make sure they impress upon your viewers, make sure you tell your agent to impress upon their viewers the importance of securing the mortgage offer with probably a 6-month expiry date to keep it valid until the end of the legal process.
Yeah, that's a top tip. That's a really good one.
Yeah. finally, I mean, if you feel your current agent is running out of steam, it happens all the time where actually people get despondent about them because it's great if you've got an agent that keeps you constantly updated, keeps you constantly in the loop, and constantly, you know what's going on. I think most of the stress is because no one tells you what's going on, and we go over all the different scenarios of what could be happening, what might be happening, and not actually what is actually happening, because we don't know what we don't know, and that's the biggest stressful part out of it. So it's just making sure that you keep in touch with your agent, and if you do feel they've run out of steam, it could be time for a new approach. That is when we talk about the thing about changing estate agents, which is in this blog as well, the podcast and the show that we did, and how a change is as good as a rest. Yeah, is that a change as good as a rest? I think people say, and sometimes that might be the case, and some of the people watching the show are potentially with us as well. And I have had in previous shows where somebody's come on and said, "Are you telling me to change agents then?" I went, no. Not telling you to change agents. If you're happy with things and how they're going, you can't magically produce someone out of thin air. Put it that way. You can't produce a buyer out of thin air magically. If you're consistently told a message by your agent and you're not listening to what they're telling you and you're not acting on what they're telling you, then you've kind of only got yourself to blame. Because you're more than likely getting the right advice on what you should be doing in the current market, but it all depends if you're motivated to get your house moving and get it sold now, or if you are actually quite prepared to take that risk and wait to see what happens in 6 months' time, because potentially that might happen. So there is people out there, I know, just thinking about over the line right now, and I've been discussing it with them, and I will message them again today to say that, this is the time to jump for that boat from that harbour. Because the boat is leaving the harbour and leaving the dock, and if you don't get on, you're going in the water potentially, and you're stuck with a house possibly for the next 3 or 4 years. This is about investment property I'm dealing with. You're stuck with a house about 3 or 4 years that you're at this point now thinking to yourself, "God, this has cost me a lot of money to keep this, and it's not making the return I should have been making. Therefore, this is what I need to do." And then it's like that hesitation about, am I doing the right thing? And it's like, you better get on with it and move it, because I'll tell you what, if you don't jump for that boat now, you're going to miss it completely, and then you're going to be running the risk of taking. But what is the alternative if it happens out of that? Then you do wait. You're still in the position you're in right now, and it could potentially get even worse the way the Bank of England's predicted. So why on earth would you just do it and feel the fear and do it anyway? There's a good book, Susan Jeffers, Dr. Susan Jeffers, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. If you're wanting to overcome your fears, it's a fantastic book to actually read. Listen to the podcast as well. Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, Dr. Susan Jeffers. Magic book. It will change your life forever. What about if you're already under offer then? What do you do? If you're already under offer and you've got it sold, what we call subject to concluded missives. In other words, concluded missives means it's over the line, somebody's agreed a bargain, in Scotland anyway, and they can't pull out legally. So what if you're already under offer then, and at that stage, what should you, before the concluded missives, what should you be doing? I mean, many sellers are actually worried about their move collapsing because buyers are getting jittery or their mortgage offer is expiring. So what is essential to work? What is it? What essentialities do we need to do to work together with your agent or your conveyancer to maintain that momentum and stay ahead of the hiccups and the change, Jimmy? What should people be doing?
Well, first thing I'll be doing is asking your agent to check in with your buyer about their mortgage, offer expiry date, and gauge their enthusiasm and their commitment. A lot of times you can, well, I know I can tell by people's tone and their enthusiasm over the phone. And if you can't gauge it,
and say hello, right, get it back in the market.
But we've had that recently where we've gone to people and said this has been accepted, and their reaction isn't right, and we've had to call the seller saying, "Look, I think we carry on
wrong here.
Yeah, there's something not quite right here. Let's carry on going. Let's keep people through the door." And that's when, as you said previously, we get other people lined up. We've had that a couple of times.
That's why I've refused to put a sold on some of the properties that we've got, and actually just kept taking numbers and names and saying to people, "Look, there is something going through at the moment. If it does change, we will get back to you. But I will not put a sold or an under offer on this board to stop people actually inquiring about this property. Is a one in particular in the Leavenmouth area, but I do that with other ones as well. Is don't put sold in it until we're over the line. We've got concluded missives. I'm not going to do that now. Often, more than likely, on most occasions, I will say, yeah, put sold in it, subject to concluded missives, because we know deep down, and we know we're doing all the checks, that it's going through. It's more or less 99.9% going through, and this will be fine, and don't worry about it. But there is very few, the 0.01% or the 1% of properties or offers that you think there's something just not quite right about this. Yeah. Even know how much you dig deep, and even know how much their solicitor confirms to you that everything's okay, you still just have that feeling, and it's like, nah, my experience tells me there's something not quite right here. We'll just leave it like that. Keep taking names and numbers, keep lining people up just in case. Often, now and again, we've done a couple of viewings just to make sure. Just to make sure. And then that's when you're on their back, basically saying, right, let's push this through the solicitor process. Let's get in touch with the solicitors. Let's get them moving. Let's get this one a priority to get this over the line before anybody changes their mind, so we can protect the seller's interests. We could also protect the buyer's interests, because some buyers are actually hesitant, and it's the fear it holds them back as well. Even though they know it's the right decision, they're still fearful because of the information that's been blasted to them every single day through what we could only call the BBC, the British Bullshit Corporation. That's it, the British Bullshit Broadcasting Corporation. That's all it comes down to, the BBC, good old BBC. The CNN, constantly negative news. That's all you're getting. Sometimes you just got to switch off from that world and look at your own world round about you and think to yourself, I cannot change these other things outside of this, but I can change the things within right now for me by taking the decisions I'm in control, that I can take charge of. That's what you should be doing. Not trying to change the world outside of you, because you have to accept the things you can't change and change the things you can change. That's key here. Instantly enough, that's in Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It's all coming back to me now. There's a song there somewhere. Eh? It's all coming back to me now. I'll no sing. Sorry, folks. So, if you're already in the offer, what's the type of things you could actually be doing then to avoid these hiccups?
The next one I would be doing is talking to your conveyancer to find and fix any outstanding inquiries on your sale or purchase.
Mm-hmm. Why would we do that?
Well, find and fix any outstanding inquiries. Well, if people are querying, I hear some bizarre ones. Some stuff.
Woodworm.
Yeah, that would be
damp. Electrics.
Yeah.
Gas. The gas heating system. Is that the things you're talking about?
Yeah, a lot of that. And I hear there was a wall there, and now there's not a wall there, and then the buyer
my boundary's not right on the thing, and it's like these are all things that will end up taking ages and ages and ages. This why it's now. I tell you, Jimmy, this is why it's important at the beginning of the process to tell your agent as much as possible about your property, so they can ascertain if they need to tell your solicitor now to look at some things with the title, with walls, maybe get you the right advice from the expert, to get you letters of comfort from the planning department, to get these, maybe that ensuite shower room that you put in lockdown that you didn't tell anybody about or you didn't get permission for. Maybe just to get that letter of comfort in, to make sure that's over the line, to make sure Fife Council approve that, because your sale isn't going through otherwise. It does make it difficult for anybody, because if you have that on your report from the surveyor for your mortgage lender for the mortgage, computer says no. True, isn't it?
Yeah, I get a lot of
do, yeah.
I've been to a lot of people recently who've done stuff like you're saying, adding WCs or en suites, and I'm like, go to the turn up, and I said, when you do that, lockdown, I got a friend from the pub did it, and I'm like, you got a building warrant? No, I'm like, you need a building warrant. He told me you didn't need a building warrant. I'm telling you, I've spoken to the surveyor. You need a building warrant. So a lot of stuff like that, and getting your ducks in row is key.
Yeah. So maybe one of the other ones. What's the other ones that we're going on from here? What other things should we check out if you're already under offer?
This is a vital one. check up and down the chain to see if any sales have hit a legal roadblock and whether you can do anything to get things going again. I know you'll say to yourself, when we've had chains that are sticking, we ring the people buying our house, they're maybe on the market with another agent, and we give them tips on what we would do to get their house sold so we can get our clients sold.
Yeah, or to progress their sale, because they've got the same sticking points that we've just talked about with the conveyancing process.
Yeah.
So that's maybe one of the advice that we could give you, and make sure you hit. So make sure you check up and down the chain. What we talk about a chain for anybody that doesn't know. So, for example, if a first-time buyer comes along and buys somebody's flat, and then that person that sells the flat then goes and buys someone else's house at the same time to upgrade to, and then that person in that house then goes and buys a bigger house to upgrade to. That's a chain of events that has to happen in order for everybody to sell at the same time. That's what a chain is in a property, and this is why you could maybe hit a legal roadblock. Put my teeth back in. Legal roadblock. I got that right. And at the very beginning, maybe in the first-time buyer with their mortgage, which would have a cascading effect all the way through on other people.
Yep.
That's why sometimes at this point in time, it's good to have a cash buyer, because then there's no chain. It doesn't. It's chain-free. The person does not rely on anybody selling or getting a mortgage. They've got the money in the bank ready to go.
100%.
When can a cash buyer be not a cash buyer? When they have a mortgage, but they think they're a cash buyer.
Yeah, I hear people tell me that.
Some people actually genuinely think they're a cash buyer if they don't have a house to sell, but they've still got a mortgage to arrange. And my principle with that is, you are not a cash buyer. You're a cash buyer with a mortgage, but a mortgage still has approval of someone else in that control. Whereas a cash buyer, the only person approving this is you, that buyer themselves. So if you've got somebody with a cash buyer and they say they're a cash buyer, tell their buyer solicitor, get your estate agent, tell the buyer solicitor to provide proof that they're a cash buyer, because that's what they said before you accept their offer.
Yeah, we do that a lot, and I hear people tell me they're cash buyer, but the cash is sitting all their house, which is not even on the market yet. So you need to qualify that as well.
There's actually quite a good ones here. I'll take a couple of comments here. Debbie actually said about mortgages. Always talk to your existing lenders. Most of them allow you to reserve a new rate for a mortgage 6 months in advance now. Thank you, Debbie, for that. Brilliant. And then she says, and then shop around to compare. If you don't know what to do, a mortgage broker can do that for you. Jeanette actually said there, what she said is, she says, an indemnity insurance I have used several times. Now, this is for title issues. So title issues for Jeanette says with boundaries and stuff like that, you should use an indemnity insurance policy which actually covers all these issues. Thank you very much for that, Jeanette. I have an indemnity insurance. There was a wee slither of land which actually caused a problem because my house was actually built extended because a plot was built next to it, and then the house was extended, another house on a house basically, but the title wasn't clearly explained. And great, hats off to them, Lynn Herbertson leaving. Lynn went round and got a tape measure, measured it all out for the land registry, and went, you're 5 inches out or something like that from this, so therefore we need some sort of confirmation. Now the great thing is we knew who the person that had the land before, who actually signed off a waiver saying that they wouldn't have any rights to this 5 inches, or the land registry had this wrong, and they actually sold them the whole land, including the 5 inches. But we were asked if we should take out an indemnity insurance policy, which actually, in case there was any comeback, because that would all been checked, but there might be a comeback. So what we did was, it was 250 quid, indemnity insurance policy, job done, covered. That's why it's important to listen to your solicitor and what they're saying, and just don't completely ignore it because you're a pig-headed idiot. I've said it because that's me.
Yeah, that's what I did when I
That's
bought.
why I can say things like that, you see, because I'm talking about myself. It's like, what do you know? I know better. No, I didn't. It's years and years and years, 30 years of understanding that I do not know better than a solicitor in terms of the conveyancing process. I could maybe ask questions which will stimulate the conversation and give me the answers I want, but they sure as hell know a lot more than me about this. I'm not a legal professional.
That's what I did when buying and getting my mortgage. I got my mortgage for Neil, and he was going through cover and insurances and life insurance. I just told him, he was asking me which one I wanted to go for, and I just asked him which one's the best. I'd advise you go for this one. Well, I'll go for that one then. Just he's
Yeah,
the expert.
I mean,
He's
to be
the
honest,
expert, so I'll
that's
take his
if you
advice.
trust somebody enough, you do that. I mean, I do that with doctors. Doctors says, you need a vaccination for this, a vaccination for that, and the first thing I say to the doctor is like, would you give it to your kids? Yeah, absolutely. Right, fine, I'm okay with that. Because people trust in what, if you trust somebody enough, you'll listen to what they've got to say. You'll take their advice, even though you think something different, because more than likely what you're thinking different is the fear factor jumping into you. And it's normal instant reaction, hardwired into us since birth, since time began, since man first walked Earth. It's an inherent fear, flight or fight response that you have built into you. You always fearful because of that. So another one as well is probably find out if any mortgage offer is likely to run out before the legal process is complete. Debbie had actually said that as well. Make sure you get somebody with a 6-month extension to a mortgage, whether the buyer should act now to secure a new deal before the rates actually rise again as well. Final one, and we'll move on to the next subject. What one for you, Jimmy, and the final one?
I would make sure your buyer doesn't take out any more credit yet, whether it's furniture, gadgets, car, holiday, in case the mortgage offer does expire and they need to reapply with a new lender. That's key.
Yeah.
We've had people have that happen to us before.
George actually makes a great point. He says, is buy-to-let still an avenue for building wealth? George, absolutely. I've just bought another property, a 2-bedroom flat for $56,000 2 weeks ago. I'm going to spend probably the best part of $7,000 on it, and that's going to bring it up. By the way, the home report was $70,000 when it started. Now, it's only what it's worth, but the reality is it'll probably end up being about $75,000 once I'm finished it. So 56, 6,000, 62, 75, inherently built-in value straight away. But more importantly, the return on investment is round about 10 or 12%. That's a huge value. And then you've got capital appreciation on top of that, which I'm not particularly bored about. Next 20 years, property prices will increase. They have in the last 20 years anyway by 100%, over and above inflation, by the way. It was really 170%. Inflation's at 70% in the last 20 years so far. Therefore, you've made 100% more in capital appreciation. Plus the fact, the destructive nature of your mortgage by inflation. Did you know your mortgage goes down in value every time inflation goes up as well? Because the value of your mortgage, if you had a mortgage at £70,000, the £70,000 this year will not be the same as the £70,000 next year. It will actually be less value. So by having a mortgage, you're actually reducing the value of that money that you've borrowed from the bank, but you're lending it at preferential rates. So I think I've answered your question, George. Buy-to-let is still a great thing, and I've been doing it for 30 years. And it's set me free for the last 17 years, so it will set anybody else free if you start now and plan for the future. So with that, plenty of people are still successfully moving home, and it's a matter of staying on the case to pick up potential problems early and solve them fast. So that's why you get the conveyancing process underway straight away. Final one, Jimmy. Let's talk about this before we wrap up. If your buyer's mortgage offer expires, what are we doing? I mean, all mortgage offers have an expiry date, and the days of the lender simply offering extending the same deals are behind us now, definitely, because interest rates are going up, and they're pretty, stable but volatile, if that makes sense. A bit of an oxymoron. If your buyer's mortgage offer expires before the sale completes, it could affect your ability to desire to proceed, and new rating significantly higher. So, Jimmy, what can you do if this happens to your sale quickly?
I would check whether your buyer can still proceed or if you need to get your home back on the market.
Yeah, we just talked about that, didn't we? Oh, we've got doubts. Right, sling it back on. Or keep advertising it.
Exactly. Next one would be encourage your buyer to speak to their existing lender first about switching products, as it's usually faster to reapply through a new bank or building society.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good one. Speak to your existing lender first about switching your products. If a new product's out before you do that. And you're right, Jimmy, it is usually faster doing that than actually reapplying to a new bank or building society, because they've got to go through the rigmarole of ID and proof of address and money laundering regulations to make sure you qualify. Could your buyer lower their costs? Is probably another one in the short term by taking out a longer term loan. So could they lower their costs in the short term, month to month, so therefore afford the mortgage that they've got, and then eke out the mortgage length longer? In other words, take a 30 or 35-year mortgage, or maybe a 40-year mortgage, if that is possible to do things like that. They were talking about lifetime mortgages, and I think they'll happen anyway because the banks are pushing towards them. Or could they get an interest-only mortgage right now and then remortgage later on? That is an option. There is interest-only mortgages out there, but you have to have a huge amount of equity to do that. If your buyer really can't afford your home right now at the higher interest rate, would keeping them at a lower sale price be a better option than you starting again? In other words, if your buyer can't afford that because the amount's going up, say for example they'd offer 300,000 and now they can only get a mortgage which they can offer 290,000, is it really worth actually trying to risk putting it back on and getting a significantly less value potentially? So speak to your estate agent about that, because the 10,000 that you lose could be even worse if you have to start the journey again. But that's why your estate agent should be still lining people up even though the offer's over the line, to make sure they've got somebody in the background. If you're no first, make sure you're second, definitely. Because that dream house could be yours, because the first place might end up losing. So if you see a sold board on somebody's property and you love that house and that's your dream house, then still tell the agent you're interested if it falls through. Because at this point in time, it possibly could, and you could be in there. I've had so many people I've given that advice to get their dream homes because of that exact advice and process. You don't realize you don't know what you don't know. And that's why you speak to the right estate agents, you listen to the right podcasts, you watch the right shows, you read the right articles in order to keep yourself informed and base your decisions on facts and get the right information, get ahead of the crowd. There is still a crowd out there chasing certain properties. We know that. The cribs sold in one day, basically from social media. Somebody was from London there and then. I want to see the property, job done, offer made, done, deal. Way back to London. As quick as that. That's a boy that had plenty of money, but had no time because he was high profile. He just had to get it done and get away. And I understand that completely now, because there's decisions I take like that myself, thinking, classic example, travel insurance. Oh, it's going to cost you £250 for your travel insurance to go worldwide because we're going to Jamaica. And it's like, but I'm only paying £33 for Europe. Surely there's an in-between. And then I thought about the hassle of having to move and look for another travel insurance, put all that information in again, and the time that will cost me. And I thought to myself, I'll take the 250 quid travel insurance for worldwide, because I'll waste and I'll lose more money than that in my time.
Yep.
That's a really good one. If your buyer can't afford your home at a higher interest rate, would keeping them at a lower sale price, just slightly lower, be a better option than starting again. Final one for me, if you do renegotiate your sale price, can you share some or all of that hit among sellers further up the chain? This is a great one. If you get a hit, then go to your buyer at your seller you're buying from and possibly see if they can absorb some of that. That's a really good one to pass on, because potentially that load can be spread then, and they might think the same thing as well. In other words, they don't want to lose that sale because it's certainty for them. It allows them to go where they're going. But please explain why you're doing it. You're not trying to get a hoodwink on them at the last minute and just try to get, £5,000 off them for the hell of it. You have to explain why that is. But don't lie. If you're caught, which we caught several people in pandemic doing that, then you'll never get your dream home. So as you can see, just because your buyer's mortgage offer expires doesn't mean your sale has to collapse. There's easy processes to do this, and create some creative thinking, straight talking, and an open mind. You can keep your move on track and start your next chapter of your life. It is waiting. You just have to grab it with both hands and embrace it. Next steps, Jimmy. What should somebody do? Let's finalise and close off there.
Right, with rising interest rates are affecting everybody. So if you would like to talk about the value of your home or how you can maximise your chances of moving, get in touch with us. We'd love to answer your questions, meet you in person, and hear about your plans and get you to the next step into your dream home.
It is, for me, just finishing off, it is for me getting the right advice from the right people and the knowledge. Actually, experts or authorities in their field. People understand where you are right now, take on board about your whole situation, and then actually give you the right answers for you, and not to accommodate them so they can get your house sold or your house sale, but for you so you can make a decision about what's best for you, whether you should actually sell now or wait or not sell at all. And that's it. End of the show. Thanks very much for coming on, Jimmy. Really appreciate your advice, your support, and also your valuable knowledge and wealth of experience. And until next week, guys, for the Fife Property Show, I'm Jim Parker and Jimmy Mullen for Fife Properties TV. Bye-bye for now.
Have a good weekend, everybody.